Shemai, Sitahi, Kroisoi, Chris, Doi, what is cracking, ladies, gents, boys and girls, anyone who is anyone today. Today we have another episode of Poundland Page Turners. Welcome to the channel, my name is Chris, and today we're talking about a book that I purchased in Poundland, and we're going to talk about whether or not it's worth that £1.50 I paid for it. Whether or not if you went into your local Poundland and purchased the book, you'd be in for a treat or you'd be in for a trip. You know, let's keep on with the Halloween traditions. Now the gameplay is going to be Spider-Man 2 again, second video in a row. It's not ideal, it's not what I wanted, but I'm going to explain why at the end of the video. Basically something happened last week and it's just sort of flipped everything on its head. But without further ado, feel free to like and subscribe. I've got 3 more videos planned, and then we're going to have to see about the next couple of videos after that. We got enough content for the rest of the year, don't worry. But yeah, let's talk about Anthrax Island, written by D.L. Marshall, published by the old Canelo, and obviously being sold in Poundland. Let's talk about that. But obviously first we're going to talk about the cover, because the cover's the first thing that catches your eye. It's the most attractive part of a book. It's sort of the thing that for a lot of people decides whether or not you're going to read the book itself. And the cover, you got John Tyler, you've got another character relating who's in the story, you've got another character who's in the story. Everything on the cover is actually related to the story. It's not like some abstract art. However, I will say I do think I prefer the art on other editions of this book. On the old Goodreads, I'm not sure if you can actually find this cover on Goodreads. The one on Goodreads I quite like more, but it is what it is. I'm going to show them both. Yeah, you can sort of make up your own mind on that one. The cover isn't really where it's at, but it is quite an attractive cover. It's quite dynamic. It's exciting, isn't it? It's quite exciting. You've got a cheeky little quote. Think Alistair MacLean, but turbocharged, by Ian Rankin. Absolutely brilliant by Emma W. Craven. Enthralling by Mason Cross. First Class by Mary Hanna. And do I know any of these people now? I don't know, but I'm going to get onto the quotations after I've talked about the front and back. Speaking of back, baby got back. Let's actually look at the back of this book. Now, I don't like saying blurred because it sounds dirty, but it says Anthrax, those 7 letters, instilled more terror than anything I'd come across in 20 years in the job. That's meant to be a quote from John Tyler. When you have a when you have a problem that can't be solved, you call John Tyler. 9 people are trapped on an anthrax-infested, government-controlled island off the west coast of Scotland when the door to their decontamination chamber suddenly stops opening. The only man who can fix the door, the on-site technician, is dead. Was it an accident or was he murdered? On an island populated by an international team of scientists with a military-grade bioweapon readily available, the motive to kill is strong and death is laced into the very soil. Strap in tight for this outstanding debut, perfect for fans of Terry Hayes and James Swallow. Nerve-shredding, Doug Johnston says. Exhilarating, says Chris McGeorge. So the back of the book's actually pretty good. Talk about quotes, however, I think you probably could have started with Ian Rankin. He's probably the only name I recognise. Not like to dig into any of these people, I'm guessing they're authors and stuff like that. I don't really want to like rip into anyone, but Ian Rankin's the only one I recognise off the top of my head, and I had to search him out to figure out if I did actually remember who he was. But yeah, apart from that, the cover, the back is pretty damn good. But now that that's out of the way, we can actually talk about the meat and potato. We can talk about the book itself. Now the book itself, I think the novel was 302 pages long. You've got like some pages left for the author's notes and whatnot, but what I found was every 100 pages something new would happen. So what you've got are nice bite-sized chunks where you can split the book up into 3 reads, which I did personally. I found the setting of the book to be incredibly interesting because anthrax is terrifying. Anthrax is just the, well, I say the worst, like it's a bit of rain. Anthrax is awful, genuinely awful, and they're on an island filled with it. It's actually such an interesting setting. The pacing is phenomenal. I said every 100 pages something else happens, but as you're reading on, it's like something's constantly unwrapping. It's like pass the parcel, except every time you unwrap a layer, you get something good. It's just a really good book, my guys. Got John Tyler, who's meant to be sort of like James Bond, but hard. He's meant to be like a tough guy. He's gruff. He's served as like a militiaman kind of thing. He's this hard ass who's not afraid to break the rules to get what he wants. So then he goes here and he immediately knows something's wrong. He sort of does his own thing and it sort of spirals out of control, you know, and it's just badass. John Tyler turns out to be pretty cool. pretty badass. There's like one part where he breaks into a jog, and it just felt kind of weird. Just like, why would you break into a jog? Just walk, my guy. But that's not the end of the world, you know. It's not the end of the world. The writing, the pacing, it's all pretty dang good. I will say that there were slightly too many characters, and it got to a point where I just couldn't figure out who was who. You know, they'd be like, oh, so and so, something's happened to so and so. I'm like, who's so and so? And then they maybe popped up for a chapter like 12 chapters ago, that kind of thing, you know. When there's too many characters and not enough differential, there's not enough like separating them from other characters, so they just sort of become all in one. And the characters I remember are Dash, who was the American because he's big and chunky, John Tyler, Demeter, the suspicious Russian, and that's about it. Like, you got a Frenchman who I actually quite enjoyed, but I can't remember his name, and then you got like the big boss kind of thing, who just comes across as being massively insecure and has to throw his weight around, which if you've worked, you've undoubtedly had a manager like that. Hopefully you're not that kind of manager, but you know what I mean. It's sort of nice, you can relate to it. You can sort of relate to John Tyler saying, oh, if I could, I'd absolutely just chin this guy. And we've all been in those situations where maybe somebody's been running their mouths, and at the end of the day, you know, they're just throwing their weight for the sake of throwing their weight because they're insecure. And the characters are likable, they're relatable. You can sort of attribute people you know in your actual life to those characters, but there's so many of them, and it's hard to differentiate between them unless like their nationality's brought up, which sounds awful, but like with Dash and Clay, I think another character, I was getting them mixed up throughout the story. But that doesn't mean it's bad, because what happens is there's a lot of doing, and the doing is actually pretty cool. There's a lot of action. The action's good. Constant threat of Anthrax getting into your suit and just ending your run is actually really good. It makes the story quite claustrophobic kind of thing, because you know, if the characters are having a scuffle and maybe Anthrax gets into an open wound, then they're sort of just done for. There's not much else. So the stakes are constantly really high, which does actually create for quite a tense story where there's a lot of like cool moments. There's a lot of like twists, and like I've said, twists and turns. You get a lot of whiplash, but the stakes are quite high. It's quite tense, and you got these action sequences which sort of break it up a little bit, but then it's a little bit more tense. The stakes are a little bit higher. You're not really sure if Anthrax has gone into Tyler's suit kind of thing, and what you get is just this really good story where you're constantly at the edge of your seat. There's always something happening. And then obviously, I say obviously, the book is written in first person for the most part. You got John Tyler, sort of, it's from his perspective kind of thing. It's a first person novel rather than a third person, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Growing up, I read like all of the Darren Shan Demonata books. It's something I quite enjoy. I don't mind reading first person books. So like, if I had to summarize the story, it's sort of claustrophobic. There's high stakes, there's a lot of tension. You know, at any sort of slip up, the characters, they're done for. There's Anthrax everywhere. It's gonna end your run, like. So it's quite tense and claustrophobic, but in a good way that makes it interesting. It's something I haven't read before, and being somebody who doesn't normally read these kind of books, I don't know what I'd put it down. Maybe thriller, crime thriller, murder mystery, spy book kind of thing. I've seen on Goodreads somebody saw it advertised as a horror book, which is weird because there's nothing spooky about this book. This isn't a horror book. It's not that sort of book. It's sort of like a crime thriller kind of thing, mixed with spies, mixed with military, sort of Tom Clancy dashed in with James Patterson. I just spent the last 5 minutes looking the guy up. It took forever. I could not remember his name. And all in all, for £1.50, the book is actually a steal. You know, when you see a book for £1.50, you don't really expect very much, but then when it's really good, and this book on Goodreads, I've given it 5 stars. I consider it pretty damn good, and I'm not saying that because of like X, Y, and Z or whatever. I'm saying it because honestly, I read the book and I enjoyed it. The pacing's good and the writing's good. The characters are interesting, and you know, you get to a point where you just can't really remember them, but then the action's picking up, and the action's pretty good. So do I recommend this book? And I'm going to say yeah, it's actually really good for £1.50. And if it's not very good, if you don't like it, it's just £1.50. They'll probably let you take it back in and swap it for another book. But yeah, you know, I gave it 5 stars out of 5 on the old Goodreads, and I'd probably give it like 85 out of 100, 85% if I had to score it that way. But before you guys leave, I just wanted to explain why this video is a little bit rougher around the edges. And basically, last week I had a very nasty break on my leg. Right now, my leg is up. Because I need the swelling to go down so they can operate, hopefully this Friday, the day after this video goes up, so that my leg can start healing properly. And so yeah, that's why the footage is sort of Spider-Man 2. I haven't really been playing any games since breaking my leg. My games are difficult to get to whilst on crutches, so I just played what was still in the console, and that was Spider-Man 2. The audio itself, it's because the way I'm positioned, because I'm leaning back, because my leg's up. I can't really get enough air into my diaphragm. I think that's how my old singing teacher used to put it. But with that out of the way, I just wanted to say the next book we're going to be talking about on Poundland page turn is going to be When the Dead Speak by Sheila Bugler, and that's going to be, well, the next episode. So hopefully we're going to see you then. Hopefully it's going to be a bit better. I'm praying that my leg is going to be healing to an extent where I can actually do stuff without it being uncomfortable and awkward. So without further ado, guys, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for spending time with me. Don't forget to live, laugh, love. You are always welcome on this channel. But yeah, take care, guys. Ta-ra. You just lost the game.